Oliver,
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right, yes.
Got the books in the back. Life. Are you in Belfast now, or are you in New York?
I'm in London actually.
Oh wow. Okay. Worldwide.
So this is I'm in my UK publisher's offices, hence the bookshelves behind.
I was going to ask, do each one of the authors have their own like frame that they get to sit in for these sorts of things? With all the,
uh, they tell me that this is here all the time, but I imagine if there's a different author in here tomorrow, it'll be a whole different set of books.
they wheel it out and wheel it back
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
How are you holding up here during COVID? How's the family?
Oh well, it's trepidation. It's uncertain times for everybody, and we're trying to find a rhythm just like everyone else.
Sure. And you have two kids.
Yeah,
Your daughter must be one. I'm guessing here.
she's 2.5 now.
Two and a half. Okay. And how old is your son?
He's 5.
Okay. And we're going to talk about your new book. It's called What We'll Build. Your bestseller list is through the roof. My family, we're all huge fans. My daughter's class is going to be checking this out later. She's in first grade. She's 6. And you've given me major cool points.
I'm glad I can help.
And so What We'll Build is a book that you dedicated to your daughter.
I did, yeah.
And the one of the reasons my daughter and I did it for bedtime the other day. She gave you 5 unicorns up. So awesome.
That sounds impressive. I'm assuming that's good.
That's good. I only get 3 for dinner time, so you're winning. But it's all so it has everything we love in it. The whimsical illustrations, and it's got great messages kind of interwoven in there. So on the surface, it's a story of a dad and his daughter dreaming about what they're going to build. But what are some of the other metaphors that are in there?
Well, it's not a straightforward story in the sense that there's a beginning and a middle and an end, and the way you'd expect from an adventure story. It's more of a poem really than anything, and it's me imagining this future with my daughter and this future that we will both have, and a lot of it is sort of direct, and we'll build a door, we'll build a home, but a lot of it is extremely metaphorical. We'll build some love to set aside and build a hole where we can hide. And it's about the idea of charting a completely unknown future and how there will be good times, but there will also be rough times, and how you plan for that and how you navigate that. And really, it's a book about not necessarily just a father and a daughter, but also the space between any two people in any loving relationship, and how you need people to get through. And I, for one, I always like to verbalize my plans, the things that I'm thinking of. I like to say them out loud, and that's half the battle is saying it and just having somebody hear your intentions and hear your plans. It's like going to see a movie is more fun with somebody else. Like going to a restaurant is more fun with somebody else. It's telling a joke on your own, no matter how funny, it doesn't quite hit the mark unless there's someone there to laugh at it. It's like what we do together.
Right. And it's funny because I read that scientifically the most difficult thing we do as human beings is interact with each other.
Really?
Yeah, but and point being, also interwoven in the book is a story of kind of acceptance and inclusion and saying you're sorry. And there is a big lesson on how to communicate, towards the end of the book. And I think it's an important skill to learn. And you to your point, like learning to share what you're feeling, but then also learning how to be a safe space and create a safe space and go, you know what, I hear you, I understand, I know you're coming from somewhere. I always say when people argue, everybody's coming from somewhere. You may not agree with them, but they're coming from somewhere. So
nobody sets out to be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's got a base for whatever they're talking about.
Yeah. Nobody sets out to be the bad guy, but also in that there's not enough listening, and I think there is something fundamentally wrong with the state of the world whenever everybody would rather be right than be better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that act of being able to listen is what makes it better, rather than just being proven right.
Sure. And listen and try to understand and try to kind of maybe
I don't know if you saw it, but at the back of Here We Are, there's a quote from my father that he used to say to all of I have 3 brothers. He used to say to all of us growing up, it's like the only 3 words you need to live by is respect, consideration, and tolerance.
Beautiful. No, that's great. And you come from a big family, yeah?
Yeah, 3 brothers.
And a lot of storytellers in your family?
A lot of storytellers. My mom had 7 siblings,
Okay.
and then so multiple cousins. And of course, you know, in Ireland, everybody's a storyteller, like kids in the playground, uncles in the pub, wherever, grannies in the kitchen. It's just, there's once I flipped into starting to tell stories, it just occurred to me that I know how to do this. I know where the beats should be because I've just been exposed to stories my whole life.
Right. And that was going to be my question. Like, was it something that you had to learn or hone, or was it something you just picked up by osmosis because everybody was telling the story?
I think it must have been osmosis, and it's like things felt naturally right, that they should hit a certain place, and it just then became intuitive. But that the intuition you learn from somewhere, and that's pattern recognition.
Have you ever had to take a master class to make it better, or is there like how, you know, vocally you have a voice coach or you practice music?
Well, that's because it's supposed to, I think with vocals, it's supposed to sound a certain way, or it's supposed to hit a certain note, and there's rights and there's wrongs. Whereas with storytelling, there's not really. It's so much more nuanced than that. There are things that work and there are things that don't work, but I think I've been fortunate enough that I hit on a style and a pattern that works for me, and so I've never really second guessed that. It's as long as if I read through something and feel like it could be said better, that there could be a better flow, a better rhythm, I'll just keep doing it until it feels right. And an important part is setting it aside for extended periods of time and coming back at something with fresh eyes.
Do you ever give your work to somebody else and have them critique it?
I've got people that I will bounce something off.
Yeah.
And it's a range of people. There's maybe kind of on rotation, there's like 8 to 10 people whose opinion I trust, and they're all from all different walks of life. And yes, I'll sometimes listen to what they're saying, or sometimes we'll override it. It's the beauty of being the chairman of the board of my own directors.
What's the best way for someone to critique you?
That I ask them to, for one thing.
Yeah.
And that always happens at an early enough stage that I can do something about it.
Uh-huh.
You know, because it's like offering unsolicited advice can wrinkle people, and it's because it's unsolicited, nobody asked for it, but especially if it's coming too late to do anything about.
Sure. What do you love more? Writing the story, drawing the story, or painting the story?
I don't think I could separate them. So the painting definitely comes after. It's like, okay. But the writing and the drawing story are really inseparable. And that's the most fun part, is figuring out what it looks like, what it sounds like, and how that fits into the structure of a book. Because there is a set structure to a book, in the sense that you've got to have the pages be multiples of 4, because that's just how books are made, how they stick together. Right. And so you've got to work out where you want to be by this point in the book, this many pages in, and then you work backwards from the end. It was like, well, it's got to be wrapped up by this point, so where do I need to be there? It's like this jigsaw puzzle that you need to really sort of try to slot into place.
Okay. This question directly from my daughter. She would like to know how long it takes you, start to finish, to make a sketch.
To make a sketch?
Yeah.
Oh, I can make a sketch in probably under 5 seconds, but it just depends on what I'm trying to sketch.
What if it's an illustration for the book?
Well, if it's a finished drawing, some of the paintings take several days, and some take a day, some take half a day. It just depends on the level of detail, really, in there. Some of the oil paintings that I make can take a month or more, 6 weeks.
Sure.
3 months.
And then how old were you when you discovered your passion? Was it progression from sketching to painting to then writing? Is that how it kind of happened?
No, yes, it was that. It was like the writing came at the very end. Although even before I discovered books and I just thought I was going to be a painter, I was using words, but as a visual thing, you know, make a painting with like a couple of objects in it, and then throw a word in that was a whole different cue altogether, that maybe completely contradicted what you were saying, and that there you've got the tension of a story somehow. And so I was doing that an awful lot before it occurred to me to really actually just tell stories in the form of a book. So the writing aspect, I think, is the skill that I honed last.
Okay. And how old were you when you started like really sketching? And were you super young?
Yeah, I just never stopped. You know, it was like, as Picasso says, all kids are artists. The trick is remembering how when you grow up.
And at what point did you realize, okay, I'm going to make a living doing this? This is my thing.
I was talking to somebody about this earlier on, and I can remember at about the age of 15, when in the Irish and British education systems, you got to start picking your career path. So you got to start specializing. And at that point, I realized that making art was a real thing that you could do. And I was like, yeah, that's for me. And I never looked back. But that system doesn't work for everybody. I was just one of the fortunate ones that it did work for.
Yeah, I was 9 when I decided to become a disc jockey. It was after visiting a radio station, and I just thought the guy playing the music and hitting the colorful buttons was the best thing ever, and this is what I'm going to do.
And does it feel like that's what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for almost 30 years. So I've never, to your point, like I never looked back. And how did your parents feel about it? How are Irish?
They were incredibly supportive. But
they were okay.
Yeah, we were fortunate that I got most of my other friends. Parents were kind of insistent that they get a proper job, and they recognized that this is something that I showed passion and talent for, and they were just extremely encouraging.
And I would add, and if you agree with this or not, but when you do find your passion, like the money comes later if you're passionate enough. Is that fair to say? Typically,
I think so. It's like you can always. It depends on why you're doing something. You're doing it to make money, just holding exclusively. It's a balance. But there's this wonderful Japanese Venn diagram called I think it's Tsunami. I'll have to look it up. But it's that what you're good at, that what you can be paid for, and that which the world needs. And if you can overlap two of those, that's great. And if you can overlap all three of them, then it's that sweet spot.
That's a life win, right?
Yeah.
In that vein, since you're now, making money to do it, do you ever feel anxiety to be creative? You ever stare down at the blank sketchbook and go, okay, I got to come up with something?
No. And simply because I'm always working on so many different projects at the same time. If I hit that spot with one, I just move on to the next thing.
Okay. So
I think you can beat yourself into the ground by staring at a blank piece of paper. So just move on, and when your subconscious will take over, and whatever the problem, whether it was starting or finishing the other thing, will come to you when you're least expecting it. Or it won't, and by that stage you'll have just forgotten the problem existed in the first place.
I'm staring at the Wall of Fame behind you, and I see one of my favorite books. My daughter and I love reading The Day the Crayons Quit.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I picked up that book, I was really impressed because my dad is a linguist. And so I loved the long form reading in there. I loved that each of the crayons had its own persona. I irritate my daughter because
I'm not the author of that book. That's Drew Daywalt is the author of that book.
Oh, forgive me. You're the illustrator.
I illustrated. Yeah.
Okay.
So the dialogue the crayons say is out of my head, but the rest is true.
You're right. I completely forgot about that.
But it's a great format. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, I know how this should be done. And I was like, I'm going to have to do it, because it was shown to me and I was like, oh, this should just be kept so simple. Somebody could do this really wrong, and I just can't let that happen.
Yeah. I irritate my daughter because I give each of the crayons their own distinctive voice.
I've learned that this is a thing that parents seem to do. And so the one time that I read this at a bookshop, somebody shouted out, it was like, my daddy does it better. I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to come up with like different accents for every single one. I can only do an Irish accent.
Well, my Irish accent's terrible. It always devolves into Scottish, so I won't even try. But the first time I read it, maybe she was 3.5 or 4, she leaned in, she goes, Daddy, do me a favor. Don't do the voice.
Everyone's a critic.
So when you do your open readings, do you do voices or no?
No, I don't, because when I do open readings, I tend not to actually read the books. I'll just talk about them, and then I'll draw. And because whenever it's an audience in a bookstore, I think, especially young kids, they don't really care who I am until I start drawing. And I'm like, oh, I see now the connection.
And also, because I'm not sure how much feedback you get from your audience, but my wife wanted to be sure to tell you that she really appreciated the read alouds that you did at the beginning of COVID, and that I think really helped a lot of families get through a lot of different things.
Yeah, I am hearing that, and I didn't realize how important it was going to be at the time, and just even to give our day some structure. But I'm very glad that I did that. And
Here We Are, the book, and also the movie. We watched that as a family at the dinner table, and that's also very, very cool. What else do I want to ask you? I wanted to go back to the new book. Again, it's called What We'll Build. Are you an actual builder? because I kept turning the pages, getting more and more insignificant because I can't build anything.
I certainly can't build a road to the moon or a ship or a tower or a fortress. I can't build anything. I'm handy with a drill and a saw. I can do basic repairs
Yeah.
with wood mostly. I'm not really good with electrics or metal.
Okay.
But if it's a big job, I'll hire somebody else.
Have you ever had what was your any job you had before illustrating?
I worked at a bookshop.
Was it to get the discounted books, or you just?
It's not even the discount. It's my wages just went straight back into the till.
There's something magical about tactile books. Like, I don't know how you feel about a Kindle. I don't like them.
I'm not the biggest fan, but I think it worked for some people, especially if you travel a lot.
Sure. I have been known to go to a bookstore, and I just love being in there, being in the story, in between the covers, you know. Do you do anything outside of what you're typically known for that helps you to kind of escape? Any other sort of hobbies?
Yeah, well, until recently it was playing football or soccer, indoor football, and I like to cook.
Oh, okay, me too.
Cooking for family and friends with some good music playing is about when I'm at my happiest.
Sure. What's your go-to dish? Do you have one?
I've got a lot of different things that I'll go to. It depends on the time of year, the mood that we're in.
Yeah, I've always considered like the stove and the pots to be my sketchbook, and then the utensils and the food to be my kind of medium, I guess.
I don't look at it that way at all. I think at that point I probably had enough of sketchbooks and mediums.
If someone wants to get started, either writing or drawing, what's the best way to learn, for example, how to sketch?
Trust your intuition, and it's the means to an end. It's a form of communication, and just like think about what it is that you're trying to say, and what's the clearest way you can say it with the skills that you have.
And one of the things that I really liked too, kind of researching, is you seem to be a very curious guy, meaning, inquisitive. And
my dad always said the surest sign of intelligence is curiosity.
Yeah. What are the most important attributes to have for somebody for growing up, for example, for adulting?
I really do think curiosity is probably about one of them. Curiosity, respect, consideration, tolerance, those words that my dad said. And I think a sense of enthusiasm and selflessness.
Yeah. And sprinkle in a little bit of perseverance probably in there somewhere.
Yep, absolutely.
I really enjoyed this too. Tell me the worst piece of advice you ever got, because I think it's important to share.
Oh, the worst piece of advice? I need to think about that. I often get asked I think the worst piece of advice I probably have forgotten along the years.
Okay. Well, the quote that I read was, never judge a book by its cover.
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually said that earlier today. Yeah, nobody does that. Everybody actually judges a book by its cover. How you present yourself matters.
I think that's an important thing to share. Oliver Jeffers, don't miss the new book, man. You're probably already a fan if you're watching this. It's called What We'll Build. It's a book dedicated to your baby daughter, which I love. And then one of your first books, Here We Are, dedicated to your son. Now, did you think of the book as your daughter was born, before she was born? At what point were you like, all right?
When she was very young, not before.
Okay.
I was reacting to her and to the way I was thinking when I was with her.
We're huge fans, so be on the lookout for that book. I appreciate your time, sir.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.